This show is produced by the Hartman Media Company. For more information and links to all our great podcasts, visit hartmanmedia.com.
Welcome to the AIPIS show for accredited income property investment specialists and those who aspire to be. If you're a real estate, mortgage, or financial professional, this is the place for you. We'll explore innovative investment analysis, sales, marketing, and income-generating strategies for the most historically proven wealth creator, income property. Learn from the experts as they show you how to build a better business and a better life.
It is my pleasure to welcome Eli Secor. He is the co-founder of Landlordguru, and we're going to talk today specifically drilling down on some great management techniques and strategies, some tools you can use, and especially we're going to go into what I think a lot more of you should be doing, and that is self-managing your properties remotely from a distance, as Bette Midler would say. I've done it for years. A lot of our clients do it, but not enough of our clients do it. And oddly, we have found that it is actually sometimes easier and less time commitment to self-manage your properties than to manage your manager. You can do it either way, as you know, through our network, but we really want to recommend the self-management idea. Eli, welcome. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you, Jason. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's good to have you. And you're coming to us today from tenant-friendly Seattle, where nobody wants to buy rental properties.
Yes. We are an island in terms of landlord-tenant law, that's for sure.
Yeah. Good stuff. Well, hey, just give us a broad view. We'll drill down on things. Just in terms of your general philosophy about landlording, some of your favorite tools, wherever you want to start, and we'll go from there.
Okay. My philosophy about landlording is that I want to provide a great product and also an experience for my tenants, while at the same time being able to do other things with my life. I believe in quality, and at the same time, I've got lots of other things I'm doing, and landlording is a part-time project for me. I do it for a relatively small number of units, but I'm all about finding better ways to manage and having more time in my life.
Right. So what are some of those better ways, those best practices?
Well, we write a lot about, property management software, and we found that those products can really streamline the process of managing property. I go to the property, a fraction of the number of times that I used to. I'm not carrying paper anywhere anymore. And, products, I'm using Avail right now. We have relationships. We have
them on the show. Yeah.
You have. Yeah. They do a great job. We have partnerships with most of the other products out there, and it's some are better fit for other people. I mentioned Pay Rent to you before we started, and they're great if what you really want to do is get that electric funds transfer every month to your bank. And we found that everybody likes it. So if that's just what you want to do, Pay Rent is great. Avail I use because it does the full spectrum. I can go from listing, broadcasting, syndicating my listing all over the internet, to screening, to collecting rent, writing a lease, the whole deal. So,
and most of them are doing that nowadays. I mean, Hemlane does that. A lot of them do that nowadays. Of course, using software can be a very powerful tool and it can do a lot for you. But other than the tech, which we've covered a lot, or that technology of various software, management software programs, what else, like any best practices in terms of marketing your properties, screening your tenants, relating to your tenants and dealing with them and things like that?
Yeah, I'm sure this is obvious, but good photos. are
Oh, that's not that obvious, my friend.
yeah, it's really important. That you got to get the lighting right. And I don't do anything sophisticated. It's all on my phone. But I do manage the light, so you get a good representation. That and writing a clear and thorough listing, so that the renter has a good idea what they're getting, even though they almost never read it. But having that all clear, presentable, the photos are the first thing that rental shopper sees, and it determines whether or not they look at the listing and reach out at all.
Yeah.
So,
one of the things we recommend is that people hire a real estate photographer. There are photographers that are just real estate photographers.
Absolutely.
And pay, $149, which is about all it'll cost, okay, to have them come when your property is looking its best, right?
Yeah.
And get that set of photos for your property. You can use it for years and years and years and years through multiple tenant turns. But if you just purchased a property and it's all turnkey and it's looking good, spend that money, get a professional photographer to do your photos, and you will use those for so long. It's fantastic. If you were at a time in your property ownership where you just did some improvements to the property, that's an ideal time before a tenant moves in to get a professional photographer over there and get that set of 30 pictures for your rental properties, and have these on each of your houses, label them in your computer. You'll just use them over and over. Picture says 1,000 words. So I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I'd suggest adding video to that at this point.
Sure, and they do that.
Different platforms enable you to add a video and others don't, but to have it, and every one of them, and I'm talking about Zillow and Apartments List and all those, and Craigslist, not all of them you can support video at this point, but to have it, it is invaluable, and you can send it to somebody. So
sure.
Another best practice in my mind is to have a bit of a discussion with each of the people who reaches out to you, where you just establish a little bit of rapport. I value niceties, thank you for your inquiry. And I find that depending on how people respond, some people just won't want to take the trouble to even kind of have a dialogue. And in that, I always ask 3 questions. And there are many more that you could, the pre-screening questions, which get you set up, to figure out on both sides whether or not this is a fit. And I keep it simple. Do you smoke? Do you have pets? And do you make a multiple? I use 2.5 times the rent, each month after any large debt service, basically, obligations. So if I do those things, I then have narrowed down the pool significantly to the people who are willing to do it and can answer those questions in the way that I want to. So that's another step. I also really value meeting the tenants, ideally in person.
But again, you're talking local management.
Well, that's true.
We're talking nationwide management. So, I'm glad you brought that up, because I tell you, folks, meet them on Zoom.
Yeah.
Just jump on Zoom with your tenant and record it. Okay. So you have, what these people look like. Okay. Yeah. And this is not for an applicant, because that's take way too long. Once you've chosen someone, I mean, you could do it for applicants, but God forbid, if you get like a criminal, right? You got them on video, right? So that's good, right? If you ever need that, which I can't imagine you would, but you never know in this business, something could happen. But you get them on there, you have like a talk with them, you have an understanding. And because it's a face-to-face, even on Zoom meeting, sometimes it's much more effective actually on Zoom. You really are setting the stage for the way that relationship is going to work.
I have done that a couple times. The pandemic led me to do that. But even more common, it has been the scenario where a renter is moving from out of state and they just can't coordinate being there to look at in person. So I've done video tours with prospective tenants, and an upside to that is that, especially somebody who's relocating, they got to move, and it's a little harder for them to find a place. So if I make it easier for them, they're more likely to want to rent from me.
Right.
And you're right. You really can get a pretty good feel for people, and that falls under the category of meeting the tenants. In my
I agree. And if you meet them on Zoom, unlike in person, I mean, here's an advantage of the virtual meeting, right? You're probably going to get to see their house. And is their house a disaster area? Is it a total mess? Do they have a meth lab operating in the background?
Right. Yeah.
So you might be better off meeting them on Zoom than in person. See?
Yeah.
I remember one landlord, this was in the old days when everybody thought of it as a local business. And, this was when I was like 19 years old. And I remember one investor talking from stage at a conference I was at. He said, always walk out with them to their car and see how they keep their car. Is it an unwashed, dented up mess with fast food wrappers strewn all over? Or is it a car that's like in, presentable condition, right? That's probably how they're going to keep your house. But I will tell you that my own mother does not care about her car in the least. Her house is impeccable. So I don't know.
You can't.
Nothing is foolproof,
Right. Yeah. That actually goes along with that a little bit of email dialogue that I was mentioning before. Like if you find somebody who can write in complete sentences and
doesn't type in all caps like they're yelling at you.
A little bit of punctuation, and it just says a lot in my mind.
Right. Yep. Good stuff. Okay. So, you're talking there more about screening or setting the tone once you've accepted a tenant and the application's accepted, just setting that up. What about ongoing management, repair issues? A lot of landlords have said that they have good success with basically making the tenant responsible for all like minor maintenance. And then they just never get any calls, which, that's what every landlord wants, right? What do you do? What are your practices there?
I've moved in that direction. As I mentioned to you, I've got a background in construction. So I just by hearing about what's going on, I can kind of diagnose. But what I do mostly at this point is to put my tenants in contact with the vendors. Mm-hmm. And most of them are willing to do that. They want that
I agree.
To have it work around their schedule, and it keeps from having to triangulate.
Couldn't agree.
Coordinate three different people. That's a benefit of some of the property management software platforms, is that there's a rental module or a maintenance module effectively where you can bring in the service provider as well. So you're all talking together in this basically chat area. But
what else is really good for that? And I was so pleasantly surprised to find that on Yelp, last time I hired an HVAC air conditioning person, on Yelp, they have a whole interface for that now.
Oh, interesting. And
it really just makes it very easy to hire these people remotely. Now, of course, you can use some great tools, are Thumbtack, TaskRabbit, Yelp. We have Angie's List. We have all these great tools nowadays that make it so easy to remotely manage your properties. And the amazing thing that I found is when I started self-managing the first time, my first long-distance self-management experience was about 14 years ago now.
Yeah,
and it happened by accident. And I found that the tenants are like your best resource. Mm-hmm. They will find vendors. They will shop vendors. They will read their reviews. Most tenants are good people. Right?
Yeah, that's
We've
true.
all heard the stories of the bad apples, but the vast majority of, 98% of them are just great people that just want a nice place to live.
Right.
And they're our customer, right? We have to remember that, right? This is our customer. Okay. Mm-hmm. They'll just do that work for you. Like get bids and recommend the best vendor. And, they tell me like their impressions. I get an email, I met with 3 air conditioning contractors that came by yesterday. And I really think this one's the most professional. I looked up their reviews on Yelp. I couldn't believe it. This is more than my property manager would have done.
Yeah. Well, that's real research, which my only quibble with the Angie's List and those types of platforms is that there's some unknown quantities. So somebody who will use a platform like that, but then take the extra step is really invaluable. I had a tenant who would collect the quarters, from the laundry machine, because that was 3 hours away, and the laundry machine was always filling up with quarters, and then it stopped working. So I'd have him do that. And I've also found that if I find the right handy person, that I can get them to cover, when I'm off on vacation.
Yeah.
And I make it good for them, and it's win-win. Tenants get to know them as well. And it just goes smoothly.
Right. Tenants like to have a sense of ownership. Like the good ones are happy to take on some responsibilities, okay?
Yeah.
And do some of this stuff. So yeah, that's great. Talk to us about some other best practices, if you would.
Yeah. Just based on what you just said, I have one comment, and that is that I have a lot of tenants who say that they really like dealing with me a lot more than the management companies that they've dealt with in the past, because it's so impersonal. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean I'm perfect every time. It just means that they have a contact to go to, one person, and the same person every time. And I think that may go into what you're saying about how they're willing to do the work to help out, and get it done on their schedule, to some extent too. But another best practice would be when you're writing up a lease. I guess I'll just comment a little bit on our market. I really believe in belonging to the local rental housing association.
Yeah. Like the Apartment Owners Association or Rental Landlords Association in these local communities. And, you can join those from across the country.
Oh, yeah.
That's something that we have found. A lot of our people have done that. They'll live in California and they'll own property in Florida, and they'll join the Florida Landlord Association, right? Yeah. And, it's $40 a year or something like that. And that'll just be a nice resource for them, because they'll have eviction attorneys, resources, networking, all kinds of contractors and service providers, and education too.
Yeah, I just found a paving contractor recently, but on the forum on the local rental housing association, which is great here. And one of the things they do for us is they keep the lease documents absolutely up to date, because the laws are changing. So those are the very best lease documents that we can get for this location. So yeah, like you said, there's a lot of value to that. They do seminars, references, documents, that really is a benefit, I think. And you're supporting an advocacy group as well. They do a lot of lobbying, and
right, they're lobbying your local government or your state government to get the right laws passed in your favor. One more thing, I want to comment on something you said a moment ago, Eli, and that is about how the tenants like dealing with you. And most people hear that and they think, oh my God, that's the last thing I want to do is talk to tenants, right?
Uh-huh.
I would really encourage you to re-examine that belief. And here's why. Like I said before, most tenants are great people. The vast majority of them are wonderful. Okay. And when they have that social pressure of maintaining a relationship with you, their landlord, they don't ask for a lot of stuff. When they have some amorphous property management company, and they see an ant in the house, they're going to, send a thing or call them up and say, hey, send an exterminator. Oh my God, right? Which I wouldn't do, right? But when they're maintaining that relationship with you, a person, they tend to just take care of stuff themselves much more often than not, because they have that social pressure of making sure that relationship is a good one. And with a management company, it's not this way. It's just a different avenue. And so many of our clients, and definitely myself, have been surprised that it actually takes less time to self-manage a property than it does to have a property manager. Can you comment on that?
I can. I have some experience with hiring property managers as well. And if nothing else, I think the contact, a maintenance request, for example, there are more steps to it. I can resolve an issue with a tenant if I've got the tenant who's willing to cooperate with me, help out, on timing, maybe contacting a vendor. And ideally it'd be nice if I had the vendor there already. I can put the three of us together really quickly and get it done. Whereas I find that I often want more information from the property manager before I give the go ahead on a repair, because I want to understand it.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
there are times in life when a middleman is beneficial, and there are times when it's not. Mm-hmm. And in the property management world, a lot of times it's just better to be directly dealing with the tenant. Okay. Yeah. It depends. In some things, it's better to have a middleman, right? It just depends what it is in life. But
brokers, you need people who know the field really well and are all set up. But
But it's not just that. It's the ability to, take, for example, a broker, right? If you have a real estate broker in a deal, that broker can follow up with a potential buyer if you're a seller, or the other way around, without appearing anxious. Mm-hmm. Right. And giving away your negotiating position, giving away your cards, because they're just anxious to make their commission. Right. And everybody understands that. That doesn't sort of give away how motivated is the buyer or seller in the deal. Right. But if you're dealing directly, then the counterparty is going to know how anxious you are. Right. Mm-hmm. And hey, I got to do this deal, okay, well, we'll raise the price.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so that's helpful too. So it just depends. It's different with different things in life, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And before we started, you mentioned that finding a realtor to help out in a local market, when you're across the country, can be a great asset. And I agree with that. Like I said, if you have a handy person as well, that's great. If you've got two of those, you're really set to have a pretty smooth, ownership, I think.
Yeah, you definitely are. And I love how you keep saying the politically correct handy person. And I've hired a lot of handy people in my life. I've never had a woman come. It's always a man. I'm just pointing out the reality. It doesn't seem like women want to do that crappy job.
Well, there may be something to that.
Yeah. They'd rather work in a nice office with a Keurig coffee machine, I think.
I won't comment.
Yeah. But anyway, the hybrid approach to self-management, you alluded to that just now when you talked about having a realtor in that local market. And this is the exact strategy we recommend. Okay. So when we recommend self-management, as we were talking about before we started today, we recommend that you have a realtor or even a property manager, but a property manager offering a la carte services.
Yeah.
Where all they do is handle the tenant turn. Mm. Okay. So your tenant gives notice, they say they're moving. You call up your realtor or email your realtor in that local market. You introduce them to the tenant. They go over there, they inspect the property, they manage the move out dates, they manage the access to the property. Once that tenant is out, they do the walkthrough, they send you a bunch of pictures, they tell you, you should really charge them for this, that, and the other thing. And then, you can send that email to the tenant notifying them of what the deductions are going to be from their security deposit. They'll line up the contractors and the workers to do whatever needs to be done. They'll advertise the property and market it. They'll screen the tenant if you want them to, or the advertising and marketing you can do remotely now with the software. It's really quite easy to do it, as you mentioned, and I agree with you. And then they'll do the walkthrough for that tenant before moving them in. Mm-hmm. And then throughout the year or the next 2 years, as long as that tenant stays, they'll be a local contact for you if something comes up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, you only pay for what you need in that case. You're paying, a la carte when you have a need. And we've used that model even where we'll do the advertising And then the person, the local person is opening the door and showing the tenants around. And now you can just send the interested party a link to apply online and pay themselves for the screening. There's no application fees, which here in Seattle are illegal, and you can take as much or as little of it as you want. And at this point, you can do a lot of it remotely. And one thing that we find that people like is a visibility into the operation, even if they want to leave a lot of the responsibility with the local person to write leases or screen or any of that type of thing. You now can use the same piece of software and be able to see what's happening, who the applicant is, what their reports look like, and all your maintenance is on a platform as well. Then you can see that. You see the pictures come in that get submitted. So.
Yeah, it's great. No, some of these platforms are very handy, and I really do think they are displacing the property managers, which is either going to get some of these bad property managers out of the business, as it should be, or it's going to make them up their game and offer a different suite of services, because really it's a very enabling tool and you can do this remotely, and it's just really quite easy, folks. I'm telling you, I've done it myself. I do it myself now, and it's great. Yeah, so I really recommend it. Eli, wrap it up for us with just anything else, any questions I didn't ask you, any things you want to share that we didn't talk about.
The one thing that came up in terms of best practice is that I believe in calling references. And it doesn't have to be you who does it, to your point. You can find people that will do it, but we always recommend calling at least one employer reference, and one residential reference. And again, when you ask for those contacts, it may weed out the people who know that they don't have people that will say nice things about them. Right. And I keep the questions really simple. I've got a list of the questions, and
tell us what some of your questions are.
Well, they have to be pretty simple now. A lot of property managers, if you contact them, they could pretty well just say the yes or no. So they have to be simple questions. Mm-hmm. But so I verify the basic information. Did this person live at this address from this period to that period? Did the rent amount that they cited agree with what they were actually paying? Was that, is it true? Did they make payments on time? Did they meet their obligations otherwise on time and satisfactorily? And did they cause any disruptions to other tenants or neighbors? Right. So I think I have a few more on my list, but that covers it. And it's easy for people to reply, and they generally do. Okay.
So here's another technique that I hear sometimes. Some landlords will say, if you're going to call references, don't call the current landlord. Call the one before that, because the current landlord, if they're bad, they may want to get rid of them. Yes. They may say good things just so you'll take them. What do you think about it? Same with employment, by the way, folks. It's the same thing with employment.
Well, that's the truth. Yeah, I try to contact as many as I can, and that I will include current landlords and employers, but I go back as far as 2 or 3 of each. Employment and residential, and you may get a mixed bag, and that's telling as well.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, well, give out your website and tell people where they can learn more.
Yeah, we're at landlordgurus.com. No punctuation or anything fancy. Landlordgurus.com, and we got contact form there. And if you got questions, get in touch. We're pretty accessible. So.
Good stuff, Eli. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely, Jason. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.